and also in the economic recovery that we have seen over the last year or so, it has been this sector, the small and medium sector, which has been at the forefront of everything, because we simply have not had massive foreign direct investments over the past few years, and perhaps it will be some time before we get such investments. So it's very important that the SME sector should be vibrant and should be supported by the government and the rest of the country. But did this particular budget, which we saw passed last week, did it actually support this sector enough, in sufficient amounts? To discuss all this, we have with us this evening Tania Abeysundara, Chairperson of the Ceylon United Business Alliance. Good evening and welcome back, Tania.
Good evening, Naresh. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be back again at MTV. Always a pleasure.
Right, a pleasure to have you. And now, what about the SMEs? What did the budget do for the SMEs? Was more expected? And was it sufficient, or was it a disappointment?
Naresh, it was a total disappointment. It was never sufficient. We expected so much more out of the budget, because it was a budget with a lot of dreams and hopes for the SMEs, especially for the SME organizations, because in their mandate, in their manifesto, they had so much written promises towards the SMEs. So when that happens, as an SME organization, as SME of the backbone of the country's economy, where we felt these people coming into power will be a huge asset to us, and that's why we fought. We wanted a change, and we brought about the change, wanting a real economical change. But to be very honest, it is like, changing colors now. Green to blue to red to, it's the same scenario what has been happening for the last 76 years. Back again, it's on the table. And when they are in power, they always say the country is in a bad situation, we need time, give us this hope, and have patience. So this is the same thing recurrently. What is happening back again. So to be very honest, the expectations were sky high. What we got was absolutely unethical, unorthodoxly. Very disappointing, because Naresh, even so disappointing, only 20 billion has been allocated for the SME.
Right. So let's get down to specifics.
Out of the 7.4 trillion budget, 7.4 trillion. And we contribute the biggest to the GDP, 52%.
Right.
So 52% contribution of a 7.4 trillion, virtually a budget. Only $20 billion in protecting the SME was allocated.
20 billion rupees.
Rupees, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. It's not dollars. So I've been talking on dollars and,
Right. Well, I was about to say,
oh my God, that's a lot of money.
Yes, would be wonderful.
A lot of money, yes.
Right. So this 20 billion rupees, what was it for in the budget?
It was for development of the MSME organizations, for recurrent expenses, working capital, any development sort of thing where you had the ability of getting financial aid from the banking sector. Where it is not happening, to be very Naresh, this is not lies, this is absolutely truth what I'm talking. I get so many calls a day as the chairperson of the organization. What is happening? This money that has been allocated, why are we not getting it? When we go to a bank, they say the circular from the central bank has not come and y'all are in the crib, we can't help funding y'all. So end of the day, this finance aid that they have given is only in supportive of the businesses that are running perfectly. Businesses are that running perfectly, anyway the banks will help. our problem here, Niresh, is the business that has suffered, business that has gone through the mill, what they are, wanting help just to survive. And after 31st of this month, when the Parate execution is brought back and the temporary suspension is finished, what would be what would be the state of these businesses? What would be their future? What sort of calamity would these people come forth with?
So let's look at the practical aspect here. A lot of small, medium, micro enterprises are owing a lot of money to banks, all types of banks, whether it's state banks, commercial banks, leasing companies, etc. Now, we have this law, the Parate law, which allows a bank to simply take
over your property for 1,000 rupees.
So, and of course,
I am not blaming the bank. I understand we signed the document. That I take full responsibility. But why are we put into this position is not our responsibility. That is where you have to touch upon, Niresh.
Right. So the Parate law, in fact, was abused by some of the banks, which was revealed quite startlingly by a senior cabinet minister of the last government, who publicly said that there are certain bank managers who are, undervaluing and basically seizing control of properties and so on for themselves. And that was said publicly by that minister, and I didn't see much of a response from the banks on that. So we have a law which has been abused in the past. It was suspended by the cabinet and parliament, but now that suspension is ending on the 31st of March. So what is to prevent banks from going back to doing exactly what they were doing earlier, which is to come and seize your business, seize your whatever assets are in the business premises. If it's a shop, they'll take your freezer, your fridge, your whatever is there, and also to seize any property that you may have mortgaged for this.
The sad part is, Niresh, when a SME organization starts a company, it is in wanting to help the government, in wanting to help the country's growth towards the GDP. That's why we come into a business, taking the risk. The risk what we take is enormous. We totally keep everything on line, what we have earned for our lives, to give something back into the country.
And also to be independent and feed one's family without being
independency can happen while working for somebody as well. But taking the risk of starting a business is an enormous, that's a huge challenge we take upon for the country's sake. We are supporting the country. Just imagine, Niresh, if we were to break down exactly what has come through for the past from 2019 up to now. What has really happened, how we have contributed, and what this government said they would do. The Parate suspension that was given, the 3 months also, was anyway supposed to be given, and it was discussed, this government came into power or not, it would have happened. But what we expected is after this, they would give us a permanent solution. I know they can't give us a immediate long-term permanent solution, but at least a solution for the immediate burning problem. So if I were to break down what we have contributed, the 52% to our GDP. Now our GDP is a small GDP. It's about $84 billion. Out of the $84 billion, in 2019, this our contribution was $46 billion out of the from the GDP. And in 2020, we have contributed $45 billion. In 2021, we have contributed $46 billion. That was the time when the country opened up and the most amount of export happened. And then when the country was called bankrupt, and that was a disaster. That is the time we still contributed $38 billion to the GDP. Now look at this ladder that we have gone up and down. So if you were to really take it, and in 2018, when the country was doing good, before the corona pandemic or the Easter bomb attack, we have contributed $48 billion. So everything occurred with disaster that happened within the country and mismanagement of the country.
Which was not the fault of the SMEs at all.
And then if you were
and
to
couldn't be predicted either.
Yes, if you were to take the MPL levels, in 2018, we were only 3.5% MPL. That is an insignificant amount. That shows that we as organizations has taken responsibility of paying whatever the loans we have taken.
So the non-performing loan
was only 3.4 billion to 3.4%.
Yes.
And in 2019, that is after the Easter bomb attack, it went up to 10.4. In 2020, that is the corona pandemic time, it went up to 13.9. It was a slow process. In 2021, it was 14.1. In 2022, after April, from 14% it climbed up to 36%. That is when the country was called bankrupt.
Well, the country was pretty much closed, wasn't it?
Even during the closed times, we managed to do business and we still have paid our dues.
Right.
Now, this was the period when the previous government, or the previous government before that, gave us the moratorium. Moratorium period, we had a huge sanitation. Like, we were given the 4% loan and a lot of benefits for the SME organization. So at that time, as businesses, we managed to sustain our businesses, pay our loans, and we were processing in a correct path. But when the governor called the country bankrupt, when the central bank was called, that is the time we were really hit. Then that's why I keep telling, if the government make this mistake, they in order should come forward in protecting us. And that was a given mandate promise in their election promises, that they will do something for the SME. But instead of giving us more money, they even cut the money they were supposed. The previous budget we had 50 billion rupees allocated. In 2024 budget, this budget only 20 billion. So there is a 30 billion cut down on the funding.
Right. Now, now you mentioned the crib. I presume that all these businesses, these small, medium and micro businesses, which went through hardships, got reported to the crib.
Yes.
So they are blacklisted by banks because of that. The bank simply says, your name is in the crib. So that's it. You can't go further. You can't ask for any kind of overdraft or loan or anything, because that's...
You're under non-performing category.
Exactly.
Yes.
But you're still trying to do your business. You may have closed down for a few months during that terrible time in 2022, but you restarted with whatever source of funds that you can get, right? And perhaps you've started small. You may have had 20 employees earlier. Now you're just starting with just a few family members, but you're trying to get back on your feet. But what is it that's needed? Why is it that crib, the banks, the government don't seem to see this?
The sad part, Nilesh, like I said, I get so many calls a day. Even while I was coming, I got so many, few calls asking me to mention this loan that was the banks were supposed to provide for as working capital or expenditure capital or recurrent expenses capital from the banks for these SME organizations. So I think they could obtain about 5 million rupees. So when they go into the banking sector in trying to obtain these loans, what they say is, you're already in the grip on the non-performing loan category. We have restructured your loan, so at least you got to perform at least for a period of 6 months, or we need a circulation from the central bank to come into the banking sector. These loans should be provided without, you have to overlook the crib and to provide the loans. So that's why we keep saying the government needs to intervene directly in trying to get a circulation sent through the central bank in trying to provide. Like the previous occasions, the central bank sent a circulation saying that government, whatever the decision taken in parliament, should be adhered to. But this time it's not happening.
So there's no circular this time?
No circular. The banks are not, they are not bound by implementation.
And from a bank's point of view, legally
they are not bound.
Yeah, they are not bound, and they would be foolish to take on a risk which is not supported by the government.
Absolutely. I mean, this is what we are saying. The government needs to intervene directly, and that's why we ask the government to directly intervene through the finance ministry, where the banks will have a separate section of like a department in trying to help the SME organization. And the bank is the best evaluation point. The banker knows if you are a good customer or a bad customer, or this customer is willfully a defaulting customer or defaulted to the circumstance of the situation. So if you are defaulted your loans through the circumstances of a situation that has happened, then the government can always directly intervene and say that we have a guarantee done. This 20 or 30 billion rupees that is been allocated, this is for the SME organization. This will come through the finance ministry or the central bank. So your funding will be protected. And the bank can monitor when you are releasing the funding in trying to protect these people, these businesses. So if this does not happen directly, the SME has no other way, Niresh. They have no other source of finding fund as a working capital, or for their current expenses, or for their expenditure, or any development. They need to get their funding from a finance institute. If they are not willing to help, these organizations have nowhere else to look for.
Now, Tania, what do you see happening after the 31st of March? What would a typical bank then do? And banks won't waste time. They're not going to say, oh, let's wait a week or two or a month and then take a decision. Banks must have already taken the decision on the 1st of April what they are going to do with the Parate execution law. So, any inkling of what's to come?
I mean, to be very honest, you can't blame the bank, because that is the bank's duty. We have signed on a document of it. But the thing here is, sometimes a lot of unfair situations are arising, because most of the time, I think I explained this last time as well, when you obtain a loan, first three quarters of the loan, we are paying the interest.
Yes, your capital stays there.
Stays there. So most of the time, the bank has already recovered their funding. Most of the time through interest they are back. But here the bank is not losing a huge amount of money. Now what is left is the capital most of the time. Now the bank is not willing to go down on their capital. So what they would say is, okay, we will cut off the interest. You need to pay within 6 months or 8 months or immediately. If they could not pay for the last 3 years, how can they pay within 6 to 8 months? Otherwise, they will restructure your loan and give you a period of 1 or 2 years to pay. Then you won't obtain a working capital loan. You have to perform minimum of 3 to 6 to 8 months for you to be legitimate for another facility from the bank.
But how does a business perform when it doesn't have that access to capital? It's a chicken and eggs.
Absolutely.
A catch-22.
Catch-22 situation.
You need the money to perform, fine. please perform and show us, and then we'll give you the money to perform. This doesn't make sense. I mean, it might make sense to bankers and accountants, but from a economic perspective, and that's what we journalists look at, I mean, I'm wondering what's going to happen, because if the Parate execution does happen, which you, as you said, you can't blame the banks, then, this is not good for the economy, is it?
When I said I can't blame the bank, is we willingly sign a document. That's why we can't blame the bank. But the situation was arised and we are put into the situation due to the country's mismanagement. Then the country needs to intervene. They need to take a decision and they have to tell the bank, look here, this is wrong decisions taken by the previous government or the country's situation. So we as the government, here we have allocated a X amount of funding for the SMEs. So this funding will be the protection for them. So you can give them working capital, you can support them. If you, like you said, it's a catch-22 situation, Neeraj, because if you don't have the funding, we can't run our business. If you don't run our business, we can't again pay the banks. We can't pay our suppliers. We can't pay our salaries. Because this is a huge blowback. Even the salary increment where the government has told to come through, I think, after next month, is going to be a huge hit on the industries. It will be a huge hit. That also I will explain in a nutshell how it is going to hit back on us. Now, even during this time, from last year, minimum basic salary where the government from annual was 2,250 billion. From 250 billion with the increment, it will go up to 450 billion. So when it goes to 450 billion, nearly 200 billion has gone up. So where are they going to find the funding? So obviously they will have to either increase taxes or increase the borrowings. So everything is going to hit back on us. Now even their recurrent expenses has gone from
well, Tania, let's get to that aspect of the budget after the break. But before that, I'd like to ask you, now, in a commercial contract, let's forget the banks. In any commercial contract between two parties, there is usually a clause about force majeure. Act of God is what the Americans call it. An earthquake, a tsunami, something happens which we can't control, floods and so on. And then, of course, the contract can be made null and void because the one or more parties simply can't fulfill it. There's an earthquake, your factory crashed to the ground. What are you supposed to then deliver on what you promised? You can't. Right. But in the case of bank loans, this doesn't seem to apply, does it? Now, we had COVID, certainly act of God.
Yes.
Right. Or whatever you want to call it, something beyond the control of people, right? Of businesses. And then you had a government which squandered the country's forex, and it ended up with a bankrupt government, right? Again, something completely beyond the control of the small and medium businesses. But those contracts between the SMEs and the banks continue. There's no, apart from a few, like Parate execution was, we didn't see it for some time and so on, but otherwise the contract continues as is. Does that seem fair?
It is not fair. That's why we keep and we are urging over and over again for the last 3.5 years. I would have come into this forum how many times, asking the same thing, pleading for the same thing. this is not due to our mismanagement. This is totally due to nature's mismanagement and the government's mismanagement or the country's economical mismanagement. So why are we paying the penalty for somebody else's mistakes? So that's why the government needs to intervene. And we are asking the government, don't take these people before 2018. Take these people into consideration after 2019. And still upon that, still the bank has the right to understand the people who are deliberately not paying and defaulters and defaulting due to circumstances. Defaulting due to circumstances can be segregated separately. These people can be taken into consideration, and the government can directly intervene and support them financially to bring their businesses about. Because nearly 300,000 businesses have already closed down. There is about ongoing about 400 to 500,000 businesses are processually ongoing. There are businesses sustaining ongoingly. Now, if this businesses also starts collapsing, what would be the calamity of the economy? That's why what we are saying, do not come directly, do not take the risk directly. You take the risk knowing who you are taking the risk on. That you allow the bank to decide who they should give and give not. And the government directly intervenes in protecting the bank, providing security through the through the finance ministry and the central bank.
Well, that seems to be the logical course of action.
We are not asking unfair things. We are not telling the government just to, give us hands out, go blindly and dump money on us. Segregate, understand, evaluate, and bank on us. If we are a business that should be helped, then come forward and help. If the bank think these businesses can't be helped and they are not in a helping position, then you can leave it aside.
But it's an integral part of the economy, as we said at the start of this program. And so certainly Sri Lanka cannot afford to have another economic crash, a debacle like we saw in 2022. Let's take a short commercial break right now. We'll be right back. We are in conversation with Tania Abeysundara, chairperson of the Ceylon United Business Alliance. We'll be right back.
වසන්තයේ මහා මංගල්‍යය සිරස වසන්ත පුදානය 2025
ශ්‍රී ලංකා මහවැලි අධිකාරිය හා එක්ව මෙවර ගල්නෑවට
පාබෙඩි තරග හා ගම හරහා දෙවීමේ තරග කාන්තා පිරිමි
කොට්ටපොර ගැසීම
කම්බෑදීම
දෑස් බැඳ මුට්ටිය බිඳීම
ලිස්සන ගහ නැගීම
ජනගායනා
සිරස වසන්ත කුමරිය තේරීම ඇතුළු තවත් ජන ක්‍රීඩා රැසක් සමගින්
අප්‍රේල් මස 6 වෙනිදා උදෑසන 7 සිට දවස පුරා ගල්නෑව මහවැලි ක්‍රීඩාංගණයේදී
තරග සඳහා ඔබේ අයදුම් පත්‍රය අදම බහර දෙන්න. ක්‍රීඩා නිලධාරී නේවාසික ව්‍යාපාර කළමනාකරණ කාර්යාලය ශ්‍රී ලංකා මහවැලි අධිකාරිය තමුත්තේගම.
විමසීම් 071 015 0430.
Welcome back to Face to Face. We are with Tania Abeysundara, chairperson of the Ceylon United Business Alliance. Now, Tania, before the break, you started speaking about some reservations about the budget. Could you elaborate on this?
That's a very good point. Thank you, Naresh, for taking this question. It's very important because even recently in the parliament, the president urged the opposition not to pull them by their leg because they are running at a very bad period and they need the opposition support for the country to go forward, the economy to go forward. We understand all that. That's why we changed the government. We gave them a huge mandate with so much of expectation. And mind you, this was never the budget, what we expected. Because just imagine, Naresh, the budget last time was 5.2 odd trillion. Okay, from that, for a 7.4 trillion budget,
it's quite a large increase, isn't it?
Large increase, and the increment that has gone is from, just if I were to break it down, the recurrent expenses last year it was 5,340 billion. This year it has gone to 5,886 billion. So there is a obviously increment of about 500 billion. Then the revenue collecting will be from last time it was only 906 billion revenue deficit. But this time the revenue deficit will go up to 1.39 billion. So obviously taxes or borrowings are going to go up.
Well, the revenue targets do seem ambitious.
Capital expenditure from 817 billion, it has gone to 1.3 trillion. So then again, where are they going to find the money? It will come upon taxes and borrowings. Then, of course, the interest that we had to pay from 2,690 billion, it has gone up to 2,950 billion. Then the surplus has gone up by 750 billion. That's about 3.2 increment in the surpluses, primary surpluses. So everything is going to fall upon the SME organizations. And mind you, just imagine the annual that will come into recurrent expenses. Salaries from 250 billion, it has gone down up to 450 billion. Then the forces. Then mind you, they have, just trying to, branding and infrastructure for the tourism. They have allocated 500 million. That is for billboards and things. And for Anuradhapura and Polonnaruwa. So mind you, is Anuradhapura and Polonnaruwa only the two tourist destinations in this country? So when they have allocated how they have segregated the funding. For me, I believe last year there was 50 billion allocated for the SMEs. This year it has gone down to 20 billion. This 50 billion should have been at least 150 billion allocated for the SMEs, because we are the economical backbone. We are the people who pay the most amount of taxes, direct and indirect. We house the most amount of workforce. So when this happens, who should be protected first? For the entire budget of 7.4 trillion or 2 or 4 trillion not to come through, it's a huge budget in a broken country. This country is broken. This country is fallen. We are trying to get up. And with this sort of a budget, with so much of recurrent expenses, with so much of unnecessary expense, even for the Foreign Affairs Ministry, this time the funding allocation is nearly 300 million more than the last time.
Food for thought indeed, yes.
So everything is a recurrent expense. This is not, we are going to get back into the country. You need to put money to a place where we'll earn money. As a business, if you are just only spending money and there is no way of revenue collecting positions to be made, the country can't go forward, a business can't go forward. I always tell this to you, Naresh, running a country is a bigger version of a SME organization, because we had to run a place hands-on. Same way the country has to be also run hands-on. Practical experience is very much necessary. Theory is only a fraction. Education is only a fraction. But your ability of understanding is 80%. Education is only 20%. So if you know only on paper and you have no practical knowledge, you can't run an institution. You cannot run a country. It's good to speak on television. It's beautiful to speak on. So what we are going through is very hurtful. It's sad, Naresh. Any country in the world gives first priority to SME organization. This country only talks about SME. The entire budget, half of the budget is about SME. But if you were to really segregate the budget, what we are getting is a pinch.
Well, those are interesting thoughts indeed. Just to explain to our viewers what SME means, it's small and medium industries, which is basically, I think, the medium sector goes up to 500 employees, so that's
Yes.
quite considerable.
Yes, I mean medium on the larger scale.
Yes, but it could simply be, I mean, if it's a small business, it could be just 5 employees.
The SME category falls upon, micro goes upon a different way. That's below, I think, 5 million, if I'm not mistaken. Above 5 million falls under the SME. So SME can go up to 500 million is under SME. Up to 500 million revenue is SME. So these are big organizations. Now the salary increment also, Niresh, just imagine this salary increment that they have brought upon. It's a huge blow. If you were to just increase 6,000 salary what the government has requested, if you increase that, you know, our monthly expenses per person will go up minimum of 11,000 to 12,000. Why? The 6,000 salary increment, EPF, ETF, and they generally do, in an industry if you take, they generally do about 60 to 70 hours of overtime. So overtime is 1.5% more than the salary. So if you were to calculate all this, an individual person, we will be paying really minimum of 11 to 12,000 rupees more. So if you have 100 employers, your expenses have just gone up by about 1.2 to 3 million. So this 1.2 to 3 million is not collected through revenue. Our revenue does not go up because cost of our goods can't be sold in a higher rate just because the salaries has gone up and our expenses have gone up. So our capital remains the same, our expenditure goes up. So we are not making any profits. So we have eaten into our profits little by little by little. Now after 30th of this month, when the Parate is also taken away and the banks force these organizations to pay, so obviously this loan facility also will be another expense on these people. How are they going to sustain? How are they going to sustain these businesses? This is a huge question mark. I mean, to be very honest, I mean, we don't see no difference from last November to now. The country is still running on the same pace. I mean, it is running and there is no difference. What we wanted this government to come up with policies, bring about policies, implementation. They have 2/3 majority. Anything can be changed in parliament. And we cannot put this IMF shield in front of us. They are not the monsters. They keep telling us, give us a better solution, give us a better proposal than we have given, then we will look into. As a government, their duty is in favor of the country and the people of the country and the institution of the country. If that is not looked into, what is the use, Niresh?
It's not the IMF's duty to look after our businesses, is it?
No, that's what I said. It is the government's duty to look after. It is the government's duty to say that no, this has to be done, otherwise we cannot. I mean, look at the other leaders in the world, how they stand by their country. Country first.
Their own industries.
Industries first. There are huge calamities that has happened worldwide, economical drops are there. But they are there to protect their country no matter what. Their industries will be protected, their businesses will be protected. Their main aim is to that, not let the economy fall. The government can't expect us to, keep falling and getting up on our own.
Now, with all this likely to happen after March 31st, what's going to happen? I'm just thinking from the point of view of an owner of a SME sector business. What is he or she going to do? Wouldn't it be much easier to simply close down?
It is easier said than done. I wish I could close my company, but it's like, we have caught a lion by his tail. A tiger by his tail.
Yeah.
If you let go, it will bite us. You can't hang on to it. It is dangerous. We are in a situation of that nature. If we let go our company, all our assets will be obtained by the banks and we won't be left with anything. And we will be on the roads. Is the government coming forward to help our children? Help our families when we go out of everything? In those countries, it's always the government that comes forward. So if we let go our businesses, the tiger is the bank, they will eat us up. The system will eat us up. If we hang on to it, we are running on a circle. So this is where the government needs to come forward, because when we invest, we are investors for the country. We need to be given benefits. Not only the foreign investors, Niresh. Foreign investor brings in $100,000 and they are given a red carpet. But we invest billions of rupees and we are not even given any sort of facilities or benefits. This is the way that they look after the industries? Everywhere in the world, if you are an industry person, you are being looked after by the government. There are rules, regulations in protecting the industries. You take the neighboring country, India, we call our big brother. You trying to export anything into that country what they are manufacturing, you will be having millions of restrictions. But in this country, we will go and sign FTA and bring the same thing what we are manufacturing. And they will say it comes for a cheaper amount. Why does it come for a cheaper amount? Because the government is giving them facilities. Why are our goods more expensive? Because we are not given any benefits. We are taxed, we are not looked after, we are no working capital, our interest is so high. So all this is a big burden upon the industries in this country.
Now, Tania, did the SME sector, your organization and other organizations, did you go and have discussions with the government, make representations?
We have discussed many a times before coming into power, after coming into power. But I really don't know, even these government institutes, like I told them the last time, they do not take in people who are relevant enough to advise them in the correct position. Because most of these people, where they are taken as advisors, they don't even understand the ABCs of industries, because for them to understand, they should be running industries, they should be running huge businesses, they should be taking the risk of paying millions of rupees as salary. So when they have no understanding of that nature, how can these people who they take advice know the real truth? Because they themselves go to XY and Z to get the proper information. So what has happened is, like I said, practicality is a different method to theory. Theory, anybody can study what is in black and white. Every professor in this country will be a multi-billionaire if and they can start a business. But practicality is what is within you. The risk we take is enormous. That does not come with studies. That comes with courage and the ability of understanding the way the global economy works. That is two different things. So if we do not understand that part, the government can't go no further.
So now looking at the global situation, the global economy is in a very dangerous position. There are tariffs being rolled out by the United States, and then in response there are tariffs coming at the United States by Canada, by the European Union, China, and so
Mexico,
on.
China.
So we have a very dangerous situation where these trade wars, already last week, I think the global forecasts by Fitch Ratings was lowered saying that the expected global growth will not materialize this year because of these trade wars which have come about. Now, in such a global situation, is Sri Lanka in any sort of footing, on any sort of footing, to have a calamity befall us again?
It's a good question. It's a very dicey question as well. Globally, the European nation and the American sector is going through trade war, like you said, where President Trump has come up with so many different new rules and regulation, where it is affecting Canada hugely, Mexico hugely, but in protecting their country, they have also taken necessary quick steps. The European Union has taken. So the tariff that was put upon China, China also has taken. So, but Asia is different. Asia is still not fallen into this category. I believe...
you mean South Asia?
South Asian country, because I believe the next economical strength will be the South Asian countries. Because we Asians are not in a war struggle trying to take over another country over a country. We are still trying to struggle in trying to bring about our economy into a better stage. So because of this, Niresh, I think Asian countries are still protected, and we have the ability of going forward within ourselves. We need the European sector because global exports all are called upon this thing. But even the Asian, the human population is huge. If you can tap into those markets and have inter-trading agreements, bilateral agreement, what is lucrative to both countries. We can be in a huge beneficiary footage. Like you take Vietnam, you take China, you take India, all these countries have huge populations. And countries like us, who are with very smaller population, who has the ability of literacy level and the workforce knowledge, can come in handy. So these are things where the government needs to understand when you are signing FTAs. And mind you, even in China, till recently I didn't know, China has a free trade zone for Sri Lanka. Did you know about that?
I wasn't aware of that.
Yes, they have, I think, nearly 950 acres segregated and allocated with storage facility, a free trade zone for Sri Lanka to go put up factories, industries, from there to export into the European nation or anywhere in the world. So these sort of benefits also have been given by those countries, where our country, as we are not made aware of these facilities. So these are huge facilities. We bring about a lot of things from China. This is an opportunity where we can go put up a factory in China, where we can, manufacture and distribute to the Chinese market, bring back to the Sri Lankan market. So these sort of free trade agreements will be lucrative for the country. This is what we should look into. So
But,
these are avenues where the government needs to understand.
But at the same time, Tania, if our businesses, whether they are small, medium or large, if they go overseas, which many businesses are already doing that, well, that would be, it's very nice for those owners of those businesses, although it's a challenge. But if you're moving to a country which is more business friendly, then it could be more lucrative. But then at the same time, you're taking away jobs and revenue for this country. Because you may be Sri Lankan, but if you're going to go and set up, let's say, in Kenya, why should you bring the profits back here? You could keep them in Kenya. You could send them to open a bank account in Dubai or wherever. The money is not coming back, is it?
Niresh, very good question. One thing, this is what I'm telling, the government is so blinded by foresighted, blinded by the short decisions they take. They say imports are necessary. If we can bring down cheaper than manufacturing, we should allow that. This is what I'm saying. So these people, if I don't know, in the future, I might decide to take my business to China, manufacture there, and with the FTA, bring what is necessary, send my finished goods to Sri Lanka. And I make a huge profit. I keep my money abroad and I'm perfectly fine. So hundreds and thousands people will lose their jobs in this country. Industries will fall. And where do we have the money to import? We cannot import through rupees. We need dollars. If we are not going to export more than our imports, every year there will be a deficit, a trade deficit. So to bridge the trade deficit, we will keep on borrowing. So end of the day, for our lifetime, we will never come out from this economical calamity what is there. That's why we are asking the government, you need to take decisions in protecting the industries. You need to protect the organizations what has been sustaining themselves. You need to implement policies, long-term, short-term, national policies in bringing about restrictions, strict policy making decision in protecting industry. Like foreign BOI companies, any investor that will be investing for a factory or some sort of revenue generating business, we will also have benefits, tax benefits, import raw material import benefit and exports benefit for a period of time, at least till you get out of your clutches. For a period of 3 years, you will be given this sort of benefit. These little things will help a long way for us to be competitive in the world market. If we were to send something to India, we have to be cheaper than what is being manufactured there. In doing so, we can't do so with the utility bills being so high, taxes being so high, bank interest has been so high, everything is high. So we rather import and then manufacture. And end of the day, for the rest of our life, we will be in debt to some country.
Well, a lot to think about indeed, but I'm afraid we are out of time tonight. My thanks to Tania Abeysundara, Chairperson of the Ceylon United Business Alliance. Thank you, Tania, for being with us.
Thank you, Niresh, for having me. Thank you, MTV. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you to you at home for watching. Don't go away because the news is coming up next. Have a great evening.